Hello, good morning, and welcome to Junior Church. Now, I hope you've had a good week this week, whether you have been homeschooling or whether you have been in school. Well done, keep going, and every day is a step closer to freedom. And actually, freedom is our topic for today. Now, last week we started looking at a brand new series all about the Bible. And over the next few weeks, we're going to be looking at key stories and themes that we see throughout the Bible. Now, we started last week at the very beginning and we looked at creation, how God created the world, everything in it, and also something very important, which was you. Yes, you are God's masterpiece. We learnt that last week, and his great love for you is also written in the Bible. Now today we are going to fast forward a little bit through the Bible, from creation, past the story of Noah and the ark, Abraham, Jacob, Joseph and his wonderful multicoloured coat, like my background here. And we're going to get to a man called Moses. Now, you may have heard of Moses before. And we meet this story of Moses where life actually wasn't very easy for God's people, the Israelites. They were slaves in a country called Egypt under the mean ruler Pharaoh. But God was coming to their rescue. Now, you might have heard the word Exodus before, which means literally the road out. So this is the story of this brave man, Moses, and how he led the people out of Egypt into the promised land. And they were free at last. Here's the story.
So here's where we are in the story. The Israelites had been slaves for years and years, and they wanted out. So they cried out to God, "Rescue us!" But Pharaoh wouldn't let them go. No. So God sent some trouble to Pharaoh. First, God turned the Egyptians' river to blood, but that didn't work on Pharaoh. No. Then he made frogs invade Egypt. There were frogs everywhere. No.
Then God sent zillions of gnats and flies, but still Pharaoh wouldn't let the Israelites go.
No. So God decided to punish Pharaoh more. He sent sickness and horrible boils to appear on people's skin.
No!
But still Pharaoh didn't obey. So God sent hailstones, that's pieces of ice, falling from the sky. Next, he sent a swarm of locusts. Now those were like the flies and gnats, only these guys ate all the food in Egypt. And still Pharaoh said, "Nah." Next was complete darkness. No light. And finally God told Pharaoh that if he didn't obey and let the Israelites go, all of the firstborn in Egypt would die. Unless lamb's blood had been painted on the family's doorpost. That did it. When Pharaoh's son died because Pharaoh didn't obey, the leader finally said to the Israelites, "Go." So that very night, the Israelites left. They didn't know which way to go or where they were headed, but God had promised them something. He said, "I will show you a new way, a new land, and a new home." So, to help them out, God sent a huge cloud for the Israelites to follow. A cloud and a pillar of smoke stretched up to the sky. During the day, the cloud shaded them from the heat in the desert, and at night it glowed with warmth to keep them safe and warm while they slept. When it was time to move, the cloud moved in front of them. And when it was time to rest, the cloud stopped. The Israelites walked and walked and walked until God led his people through the desert to the edge of a great sea. They were wondering, "How will we cross the water?" When suddenly they heard the sound of thundering and pounding. It sounded like horse hooves. Pharaoh had changed his mind again. He wanted the Israelites back, and now Pharaoh's army was chasing after the Israelites. The Israelites didn't know what to do. They were stuck with a giant sea in front of them and an army behind them, and it was coming fast. They panicked. The water was too deep to walk through and too far and long to swim through. They didn't have boats or horses, and the soldiers were getting closer and closer and closer. But Moses told them, "God will make a way for us to escape." And then something strange happened, something they had never seen before. The cloud moved behind the people and hid them from the Egyptians. God told Moses to raise his hands and his staff, and God sent a strong wind to blow on the water. The wind blew all night long. It blew some of the water to the left and some to the right until there were two towering walls of water, and right in the middle was dry land. The Israelites took a step, and another step, and another step, until all of the Israelites had walked right through, right where all those enormous waves had been. God had rescued the Israelites again, and it wouldn't be the last time he did that. God would save them again, once and for all. But that comes later. And I can't wait for you to hear that story.
Well, Moses listened to God and he led the Israelites out of Egypt, and they were free at last. Woohoo! But what does it mean to be free? So does freedom mean that you don't have to follow any rules? Picture yourself at this event and have a little think about freedom versus the importance of rules.
So, are you looking forward to today's game?
Am I on telly? Hello. Yes, I'm really looking forward to today's game. We've not been to the stadium for ages because of lockdown, so I'm really excited about today's game. Come on, you Blues! Am I on? Right, well, Jeff, in all my years of commentating, I can honestly say I have never seen anything quite like what's just happened on that pitch. I've come into the press room to talk to you because it's just all kicking off outside. Well, let me tell you what's happened. Both teams came onto the pitch and the atmosphere in the stadium was electric, Jeff. This was a highly anticipated game of the season, but it was soon obvious that there was no referee or actually any match officials, which was a bit disappointing. But the crowd weren't leaning in, so actually they whistled for the start of the game. And the game kicked off and it was all going pretty well. Tony Marshall had been played through by Henry Maguire and was bearing down on the Blues goal. Well, he was about to shoot and Ruben Days launched himself into a tackle to try to steal the ball from Tony Marshall. Days missed the ball and took the man, and both players ended up in a crumpled heap on the edge of the Blues 6-yard box. Well, half the crowd shouted penalty, and the red Portuguese talisman Fernando Brunes placed the ball on the spot, ready to dispatch his 17th goal of the season, Jeff. Well, the Blues were in uproar. Suddenly, Raheem Currency pinched the ball off Brunes and ran up the other end of the pitch in a bid to score in the Reds' goal. Well, the game descended into chaos, Jeff, without a referee or any match officials. Players were arguing, two were stretchered off. Well, they just made up their own rules as they went along. It was a shambles, Jeff, an absolute shambles. And I am sure I saw two players doing TikTok dances and taking selfies. The crowd were booing and shouting, "Stop the game!" Well, I don't know what to say. It was unbelievable, Jeff. Wow, goodness me, what a game of football that was. So in the game, the players had the freedom to play however they wanted, but the ref and the rules make football the best game that it can possibly be. The ref in the game is worth listening to as they make sure the game is played properly. So with freedom, you also need some rules in place. And in our story of Exodus today, Moses led the Israelites into freedom, but if he had not listened to God and raised his staff to part the sea may never have split in two. So it's also important for us as Christians to listen to what God has to say to us. True freedom is not only trusting God, but also listening to him. So what does Jesus say about this? Well, here's a verse from the New Testament, from the book of John. "If you obey my teaching," he said, "you really are my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." John 8:31-32. Well, okay, so the truth can set us free, and we also have the freedom to choose what we do. But sometimes choices can be really difficult, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel a little bit stuck in certain situations on what to do. Here are some examples of some different scenarios of where we can put God's freedom into practice. Have a little listen and pick the answer that you would do. Okay, so scenario 1, you're in school and you and your best friend have had a big argument. How can you act so that God's freedom is the final result? Would you A, not speak to them for a week? B, even though they've been unkind, find a way to be kind to them? Or C, moan about your friend to everyone who will listen to you? What did you think? Well, in this scenario, I think B would be the best option. Even though they've been unkind, find a way to be kind with them and try and sort out your differences together. Scenario 2. Tell someone you love is poorly and you feel sad and angry and scared about what's going to happen. How can you act so that God's freedom is the final result? Do you A, tell God exactly how you feel and then talk to somebody you trust? Do you B, get so mad and angry that you kick a ball into the window and break it? Or C, shout at your brother or sister and hide in your room for a week? Well, we know from Junior Church that we can talk to God about anything. He is interested in exactly how you are feeling. So you can always talk to God about how you are feeling, but also talk to somebody else that you trust. Never, ever feel those things by yourself. Always share them with other people. Scenario 3. You have a test in school and you already know you can't do it. You don't want to look silly and fail. So how can you act so that God's freedom is the final result? Well, A, you could pretend to be sick on the day of the test so you don't have to go to school. B, just choose not to prepare for the test, not even try because you're gonna fail anyway. Or C, work hard at getting ready for the test and know that you've done all you can. Yes, the answer is C. The best way to deal with that situation would be to just do the best you can. And, sometimes it's not always about getting things right. That's what we keep saying in homeschooling in our house. It's not always about getting it right. We can learn also from things that we get wrong. When we walk with God in our everyday lives, we are truly free when we trust, when we listen to, and when we act on what God says, just like the Israelites learned how to do when they left Egypt. Now, God knows that life can be hard. There are scenarios and things that happen where we just feel stuck. But in each of these scenarios above, God wants us to tell him about everything that makes us feel stuck and sad. He teaches us ways to get unstuck. He helps us to be kind to everyone, even those people that we don't get along so well with. And we can tell God everything, even if we are feeling a little bit cross and mad at the situation. But you know what? We're not always going to get it right, but we do have a God who loves us, who's interested in us, and who wants the best for us. And all of his ways bring freedom. Let's close with a prayer, especially for times when we feel like we're a bit stuck or we're in a bit of a tangle. Lord, without you, we can be in a tangle. You bring us freedom. Help us to learn to trust you. Listen to you and act on what you say. Thank you that with you, we are free. Thank you for making me free. Amen.